Hello, everybody. My name's David. Welcome to the Geek News Now Cantina Happy Hour. I'll be your bartender, serving up all your shots and drinks and Star Wars spirits through the next hour. With me is Cam in Focus, GNN, and we have a special guest today. This is Peter. He is the president of the, let me see if I get this right, the Star Wars Society of San Antonio.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us a little bit. What is the Star Wars Society of San Antonio? And how do we join?
We are a fan club here in San Antonio. This is our 22nd year, believe it or not. 22nd year. And a lot of the stuff we do is club for fans, by fans. And what we do is a lot of times you'll see us around town. You know, we support a lot of different charities. Our biggest one is the San Antonio Food Bank. In November and December, we had 2 major drives for them. Because you know how things have been going. Unfortunately, with this pandemic, a lot of times you know people don't get times are tight and everything. So we did this huge food drive for the food bank, and I believe in December we raised about close to 400 or so.
Excellent.
And you'll see us a lot of times at conventions. We did a huge parade at Alamo Heights to kick off the holiday season, and maybe you just kind of see us around town at different conventions. We have a table. We do have a fully sized working R2-D2, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you'll see us in costumes at some of the shows here around town.
What's the how many members do you have right now total in your group?
Active, I'd say anywhere between, let's say about 15 to 20, give or take.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Do you do other conventions outside of San Antonio, or you stick strictly to?
Well, I don't think anybody's had a chance to leave San Antonio within the past couple of years with everything. But myself personally, I have done Star Wars celebrations 1, 2, 3, and 4, and several San Diego Comic-Cons. So
I have never been to a Star Wars celebration, but I have mementos from Star Wars Celebration 2, 3, and 4. I've got a bag and a jacket from 4. I've got an autographed copy of Attack of the Clones by R.A. Salvatore that was there was only 500 of them made, and I've got one of them, and then I've got an exclusive Darth Vader figure that's hanging on my wall back there with a button that you can push, and he'll say, "Welcome to Celebration 3." And
I do have that one.
okay. So and then on the back too, just so when the batteries die, they left an opening on the back, so you don't have to take it off the card, but you can unscrew it and replace the batteries as needed. It's amazing.
Yeah, I do have that one. I do have the R2-KT figure, and at Celebration 2, as a matter of fact, since there was they're introducing Jango Fett, I did sit on the panel that had Tamora Morrison, Daniel Logan, and Jeremy Bullock. So all 3 Fets, I got to see them. When I was in LA for Celebration 4, I got to sit on Carrie Fisher's panel. And she was everything you would expect her to be. She was funny. She had a lot of great insight of stuff. And the highlight of that was, as a way of saying, thank you to the fans. She said that whenever she would get nervous or forget something, she would always recite the "Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi" speech. And so she did that as a tribute, and as a thank you to all the fans. So we got to hear her do General Organa years ago. You helped my father during the Clone Wars, the whole bit, and you're just like, oh my God, she's doing that.
It's from the movie.
It's from the movie. I was lucky to meet Mark Hamill at one of the conventions. He had no line at the time.
Wow.
God, this is not going to happen again. I did see Harrison's limo. That's as close as I ever got. So, and got a chance many times to meet Dave Prowse, Peter Mayhew, many times with Peter Mayhew. Got to know him and his wife very well.
Well, I mean, where I am, Peter lived here. Peter lived in the Dallas area, so we saw him all the time.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, I talked to we did GNN went to Dallas Fan Days. No, not Fan Day, Fan Expo in Dallas, which was back in September. and I was there all 3 days. It was amazing. It was great. Had a blast, and I actually got to talk to Katie, his wife, and
Yeah.
since she's still pushing the Peter Mayhew Foundation and all that other stuff, I got to sit and chit chat with her for a little while. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, you had said Boba Fett. You
Yes.
got to see all 3 Fetts. I've only seen the only one I haven't seen is Tamora Morrison. So I've seen the other. I've seen the other two.
He's a hoot. I actually saw him like once or twice, and at one of the first conventions we had here in San Antonio, my club were doing a big group picture, all of us in costume, and Daniel Logan photobombed us, and he's in the picture with us. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, is that Daniel Logan? He was in our. When did he get here? And I was surprised. Even at one point, it's like I saw Danny Trejo walk by, and like,
oh.
Hey.
Hey, Danny. Hey, okay. Hold that thought, because we're going to get there.
We're getting there. All right, we're good.
For those of you that don't know, we are about to discuss Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, Episode 3, Season 1, Episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
There are spoilers ahead because we will be discussing everything. If you have not watched it and you don't want to be spoiled, then come back and watch us again later on the recording. But if you have watched it and you're ready to talk Boba Fett, drop a line in the comments. Let us know what's going on. Let us know what your thoughts and comments were. We'd love to hear from you. So, Book of Boba Fett, Episode 3.
Yes.
Just initial thoughts on this show, on this particular episode. What were your initial thoughts, not only going in, but once the episode was done? Were you impressed? Were you less than impressed?
Well, the first thing I noticed going into it was the lessened run time. I think it runs about 20 minutes less than episode 2.
It's about 38 minutes total run time.
Yeah. But as a whole, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought that the chase through I think it was Mos Espa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that chase was a lot of fun. And
with the Power Rangers.
Yeah. I work with a doctor who was like a childhood friend of Joan Jett, and the female swoop gang, member. He was like, she looked just like Joan Jett. I was like, oh my god, I see it now.
Yeah. Now that you mention it,
I was gonna say I'm not gonna be able to erase that from my mind now. Of course, that's exactly who that was.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. It's nice to see Boba Fett, starting to build his empire, get some allies.
Finally,
finally, yeah, definitely.
We're done. Seems like we're done with the flashbacks at this point.
We had like 2 minutes of flashbacks. I was like, oh, thank you, finally. Getting some present day story.
Right. Peter, thoughts?
I did like it. I know some people have not been too particularly happy with it. I mean, I'm the way I'm kind of looking at it is like, look, we're getting a weekly Star Wars series, and it's got Boba Fett.
Yep.
I mean, growing up as a kid, since I remember the originals way back when, we didn't have a whole lot except for a few comic books and magazine articles. That was it. So the fact that we're getting spoiled on this is like, look, we're getting a weekly series here. So, I'm impressed by some of the flashbacks because it gives Boba some character, because in the movie, he's not there for very long. He doesn't have much screen time. I mean, he's a presence, and he's not really fleshed out as a character.
No, he was dark and mysterious, and that's he kind of lurked in the shadows, and that's what made him so intriguing.
Element, basically, he's seen as a danger to our characters, especially for Han Solo. And you're finally getting some insight into him. And as I was watching some of the stuff, I noticed, especially with some of the flashbacks, kind of putting everything together, was he's a character who's had to deal with lots of loss.
Especially with this flashback,
he's lost his home. Camino's gone. after Bad Batch, Kamino is gone. He's lost his dad. He's lost his armor. He's probably lost some of his identity and probably some of himself when he was in the Sarlacc. We're not sure just exactly how long he was in there. Let me see here. And he lost, some extended family that he got a chance to know. So I'm kind of thinking that he's trying to, turn over a new leaf, go semi-legit. But the thing is, like, how are you going to do that if you're going to run a crime family?
Well, and he keeps referring to himself as a crime lord as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
But,
I think he's kind of jumping the gun there. He hasn't quite got there yet, but he has the sights set high, and I like that.
Yeah. My only complaint so far from this third episode, I thought, okay, the gang is something different. It's like, okay, you're going to work for me. You don't have to be running around in the streets. My only downside is, shouldn't their outfits be a little bit more dustier? I mean, they look very, very new.
You know what? Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much, because that is
the way I kind of looked. Somebody pointed this out on YouTube. Was like, I think they would be more at home with that look on Coruscant instead of Tatooine. And the bikes, man, I didn't mind the colors, but they should have some dust on them.
They shouldn't look like they're brand new right out of the shop.
I mean, for all we know, they probably stole them off of some ship or something. Who knows? And the funny thing, somebody also pointed this out in how they're dressed, because they look very kind of hip, and it reminded them of, I guess, the look of a lot of the English rockers in the 60s. That type of thing. You kind of they're more comfortable hanging out with Pete Townsend and the Who, and
right,
the old Rolling Stones and maybe the Beatles, and hanging out there with on Mos Espa. But otherwise, I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this, and especially with the Pike Syndicate.
Right.
I mean, of course, there's all kind of rumors going around that you're going to see Kira from Solo, and of course, the big rumors that are flowing around, you're going to see Harrison. It's like, we'll see.
I'll take that one with a grain of salt.
I'm not holding my breath for that, because everybody already knows about this. Because like last year when we saw Luke come out for that final episode of Mandalorian, nobody saw that coming, and they kept that a secret for close to a year. And it was a great moment seeing Luke. I mean, that's Luke Skywalker, not what we saw in sequel trilogy.
Okay, we're not going to. We won't start the sequels yet.
Into that, but
Cam is very opinionated on that one.
Yeah, I mean that was Luke. As for whether or not they're going to do this with Han, we'll see. I mean, it'd be neat to see, but I'm kind of like 50-50 on it. I want to see, because Han and Boba have always had this supposed rivalry, and there's always been a connection between the two. But even if not, well, we'll see. Maybe they'll give us a big musical number or something. Lightsabers of Love or something to that effect. I don't know.
Honestly, I hope not. And the only reason I say I hope not is because it was done. It was done with the Luke Skywalker, and that was great, and that was amazing. But you don't need to repeat it. You don't need to say, oh, well, we need to do the same thing over and over again. And it's like, no, because then you run into a Force Awakens thing where it's like, yeah, we just did this. We blew up the Death Star already, so.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of don't want them to fall into, the MCU territory where it starts to become formulaic, where you expect them to surprise you with something like that. Like it was great to see Luke Skywalker at the end of Mandalorian, but then I feel like if they brought in, someone like Harrison Ford at the end of Book of Boba Fett, I feel like that would just be way too on the nose. This is,
it would be a surprise.
Right, it would be too expected. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that I feel like a lot of these shows kind of suffer from. It's like hearkening back to all of these characters that they pull from the movies and other shows. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. A lot of what we saw in like season 2 of The Mandalorian didn't really work for me. Um, a lot of it feels a little bit too on the nose, kind of forced, and it's like, okay, there's a big galaxy, there's trillions of people in this galaxy, and somehow these same people just keep on running into each other. It just, I don't know. If they do it, I want them to do it well, and I'm sure that they'll find a way to do it well. But at the same time, it's like, I kind of don't want you to. I'd like something fresh. I'd like a really good new direction for this,
Right.
franchise to take again, and to have them keep on retreading old territory. It's kind of wearing on me.
Right.
Now, to kind of touch on what you said there, Cam, I mean, this works good for the MCU because everything within the Marvel universe, everything is connected, just like how you would with the comic books. I mean, you can see how Hawkeye connects to Black Widow, and how that movie kind of semi tied in with Civil War, and how this all eventually ties into the Infinity, movies there. But I mean, it works for that, but it doesn't really have to do with Star Wars because, like you said, I mean, this is a huge galaxy. I mean, this huge universe, and it's like, what are the odds of two people from this vast universe just happen to running into each other? I mean, it's what I mean. So, but yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't. I mean, as big of a Han Solo fan as I am, and I cosplayed him for years. It would kind of be, it's like, okay, it's not like you said, it's not really a surprise. It's like, okay, we're expecting that. But one thing I did also like about this episode is you're getting to see Black Krishan, and how coming out of that dream sequence there for Boba, it's like suddenly you're in nightmare territory because holy crap! I mean, you get to see
He was
Wookiee
unstoppable.
being ferocious.
Yeah.
And it was like he could have easily killed everybody there. And at the same time, as all this is going on, it's like, Fennec, where are you? We kind of
Yes.
need you here.
Yeah. Where was she?
Yeah, she was just down in the galley eating grapes or something. Like, they'll get down here
A little too
eventually.
much spatchka wine there, sweetie. But yeah.
But they dropped him into the Rancor pit, which I was like, okay, they put him in there. There's nothing in there because we knew that from episode 1. But then I was like, oh, he has a beast in a pit now. Now he's going to be sacrificing people to the to the Rancor or to the Wookiee.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
all over again.
Yeah, exactly. Videos coming out on YouTube. Book of Boba Fett harkens back to Solo having a Wookiee in a pit. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Great. That's wonderful connection there.
So, okay.
But then again, also with having his own Rancor. I mean, that was good. Okay, I'm dying to see where this is going to go. And of course, everybody keeps asking, "Is that Muchi from Bad Batch?"
Bad Batch.
It's like, well, it's like, it doesn't have to be the same Rancor, but he's got a Rancor, and it's like, it'd be interesting to see him really ride into town on a Rancor, because everybody expects him to be carried as like, okay, you're riding a Rancor. I mean, that alone is going to get people's attention.
Okay, so this brings up an interesting. You mentioned the Rancor, and I was going to bring this up anyways, just because. Did you catch the ultra super Easter egg when he was being introduced to the Rancor? When he said that the witches of Dathomir used to ride the Rancors all the time, and I'm like, it's another Legends. They're bringing Legends back. They're talking about the Legends again. All of you Star Wars. Yeah, and Clone Wars. Yeah. But I'm just looking at it going, all of you naysayers that say, oh, they never touch on the Legends and they never do anything. I'm like, okay, that was Courtship of Princess Leia, and that was Force Unleashed. So guess what? We're using Legends stuff.
And also to kind of touch up there about that Clone Wars episode with the Witches of Dathomir, since I binge watched the season at one point, I was like, they're creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, this really fit in. This could really easily have fit in as a Halloween episode, but it was like they're creepy.
Yeah, they're like necromancers.
Anyway, so that was my take. I was all kinds of excited when that Easter egg was dropped, I was like, oh, see, look. Oh, now not only do we have a Rancor right here, but now I feel all nostalgic and everything. Now I feel, because that was one of my favorite books. You know, like you had said, Peter, way back in the dark times growing up, you didn't have anything Star Wars. You had the 3 movies, and you had the 2 Ewok movies, and you had the Ewok show and the Droid show, and
The holiday special.
and but you had the 3 Han Solo books and the 3 Lando Calrissian books, and that was it.
That was
That's
it.
about
And then
all you had. And then Zahn came out and dropped Heir to the Empire, and all of a sudden it was like floodgates open. But one of my favorite books to come out of that was The Courtship of Princess Leia. And if you haven't read it, and it's a Legends book, but if you haven't read it, go read it because it's
a
amazing.
great book.
It's great, and they touch on a lot of this with the Dathomir witches riding Rancors and all this other stuff. It's great. It's amazing. That's where they got it from. It's from Legends. So all of you people that say, "Oh, they don't use any Legends stuff," well, guess what? They are. They are.
Yeah, it's surprising how much Legend stuff they have been using. You know, I mean, ever since, you know, honestly, ever since the Clone Wars started, you know, like what was it, 2013? Really, that far back?
2008 was when the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah, I mean, even as far back as then, they're pulling influences from Legends. I mean that they canonized Thrawn, for God's sake. I mean, well,
that's a big one too. That's one of the ones that people were screaming for because that's what everybody wanted the sequels to be.
Yeah,
was the Heir to the Empire trilogy with Thrawn.
Yeah, definitely, and especially in Mandalorian, you know, they name dropped him right there, and I'm like, wait, he's alive? Wait, how? Wait,
no, he better not be. And I know they've already cast Ezra, but. He needs to be dead. Just because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see where they go with it. I mean, it's in Filoni we trust at this point. So.
Filoni and Favreau, you got to throw both of them.
Filoni and Favreau.
So we get this was another interesting take. And when he showed up, you know, they say the Hutts were there, and they're like, "Oh, we brought you a gift." And they drag this Rancor up there, and then who's driving the Rancor? It's Danny Trejo. And everybody's like, I was like, "Oh, it's Machete! He found his way into the Star Wars universe." And that was great, and I loved it. And then, and then he gets to the end, and it's like, "Oh, well, Robert Rodriguez directed this episode. Of course, he's going to put Danny Trejo in it. Why wouldn't he? He got to weasel him in some way or another."
Yep.
I mean, I've liked how Robert Rodriguez has. I mean, he did that great episode there with the tragedy in season 2, and I mean, it was a gut punch, you know, because well, you know, my God, they kidnapped Grogu and at the same time, it's like, okay, but we have Boba, you know, and Boba was awesome at that, and a lot of people are, I guess, still they want to see that in this new series, but well, we haven't seen it, at least not yet. I think they're fleshing this out. I think they're building to a big episode or something like that, or something was going to happen, you're going to see the Boba that we all know and love. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you have 3 major players here on working on the show. You have, of course, Filoni, Favreau, and you have Robert Rodriguez. I mean, it's Robert Rodriguez. I mean, if you know, the Mariachi series was one of my favorites in all the movies there. And he's a great director. And
yeah,
I couldn't think of anyone better to handle Boba Fett than Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, and especially since you're kind of in for some reason, and it may have something to do with the Mariachi series, to where, you know, I always think Western when I think Robert Rodriguez, you know, and that's just because the way he dresses and some of the movies he's made, and yeah, he made Spy Kids, which was completely off kilter, but hey, it was good,
right?
But and to throw him into a project like this, to where it's Boba Fett, but it's still, to me, it's like watching The Mandalorian. You can watch The Mandalorian and you look at it and you go, it's the Man with No Name series. This is Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More, and Good, Bad, and the Ugly. This is the Western.
It's still the Clint Eastwood westerns.
Right, and this one is just feeding off of that. So you're still getting the same kind of vibe, except you're on the Indian side of it this time instead of the cowboy side of it.
Yeah, years ago when I had met Jeremy at a show up in Austin, Jeremy Bullock, God rest his soul. We asked him, like, what inspiration did you have, for this? And he said there were two things. There was, of course, Clint Eastwood, from all the spaghetti westerns, and he also said a British SAS commando. Boba's the type of character, from what he had said, who is watching you over here, but he's aware of what's going on over here at the same time.
Right.
And he's aware of all of his surroundings, and if you get a chance, if you ever watch, whenever you get a chance to watch Return of the Jedi again, it's just right before they throw. They're going to get ready to throw Luke and Han and Chewie into the Sarlacc, and you see that shot of R2 get on the sail barge moving off. Everybody's looking at the skiff. Boba's the only one who notices R2 going off to the side, and he's like, "Something's not right. Where's that guy going?
Right.
Something's not right." And I mean that's kind of getting back to who Boba is. He knows. He knows he's been around enough danger in his life to be well aware of his surroundings, and I just thought it was interesting in this last episode where he says that nobody respects you. It's like, well, everybody should respect you. You're a notorious bounty hunter. I mean, one of the things that you see on his original uniform was some Wookiee scalps.
Mm-hmm.
Judging by what we saw with the Kershant there, he could take a Wookiee. He took on 3 Wookiees at some point. I mean
yeah.
I mean,
so
yeah,
Kershant, he turned him loose. Are we going to see? Do you think we will see him again within this series?
I think so. I mean, obviously the writers had a reason to have him let him loose, and this isn't even the first time that we've seen that character. He worked alongside Boba Fett, and I believe in some of the more recent Marvel Star Wars comics. I know that he was a pretty major character in the Dr. Aphra series. So I mean, it's that there's no way that they're just gonna write him out of the rest of the show. That's it. He comes in, he beats the crap out of everybody, and then they just send him off like that. No, we're gonna see him again.
You're gonna see him again.
He dropped the line to him too, where he said something along the lines of in the future, don't work for slugs or something along that line, where he told him, he said, okay, you're free to go, but don't work for turkeys in the future. And so is that going to be one of those things where Boba Fett's going to be in some kind of dire situation in the next episode or two, and he's going to come back and save him and bail him out, basically, and say, okay, I'm going to come work for you because you told me not to work for
I'm surprised that
slugs.
He didn't ask him to stick around and say, why don't you work for me?
Well,
I'm surprised too.
If you think about it, I kind of wonder how much Chrysanthemum adheres to Wookiee culture, because wouldn't he possibly owe Boba Fett something of a life debt now?
I'm thinking so, but I was kind of doing a lot of some research on Black Kershant, and he was expelled from Kashyyyk, Wookiee culture, and it's like, okay, you must have done something really bad, considering how honor-driven Wookiees are. He must have done something really, really bad to be banished from that culture.
Maybe he's like, since he's Black Kashyyyk, he's like the black sheep. Aha! Aha! Play on words,
right? But I'm interesting, and I mean, but you've seen life debts before in all the movies, obviously, Qui-Gon and Jar Jar. And I'm not sure if I may have to go back and rewatch the episode, but I'm not sure if Fennec owes a life debt to Boba for saving her life.
Um, it
I'm
it
not sure about
wasn't
the.
it wasn't a life debt. She basically said that since she had been gut shot. She was laying there in the desert, and he came and fixed her, and she said, I think the line was, "He saved my life. Now my life belongs to Boba." I mean,
Or I'm in his service or something.
yeah, or I'm in his service or something like that. But
Hmm.
it was something along that lines to where it was okay. You basically have a life debt to him, even though it's not really it's not stated as such.
Right.
So
Hmm.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm like I said, I'm anxious to see. I want to see Boba Fett riding a Rancor by the end of this series.
We
Yeah.
have 4 more episodes.
We got four left.
Uh,
Hey, it's possible we can do it.
I'm sure that'll be how we see him ride into the big final battle at the end of episode 7.
Yeah.
So
That-
okay, theories on who?
But,
Oh, go ahead.
one thing I kind of keep looking at is the Jennifer Beals character. For one, it's hard to believe that that's her, but at the same time, I keep thinking there's more to her than meets the eye. I think she's up to something, or maybe she's just playing both sides or something. Or I mean, I want to know a little bit more about the character. For starters, I mean, her outfits look gorgeous, and plus,
Yeah.
Jennifer Beals is gorgeous. But I'm just kind of wondering, it's like, what angle is she playing? Because she was not in this episode at all.
No. Well, which she might have been. Was she in one of the flashbacks? Not the flashback, but like the recap.
Maybe, but
Maybe I think she may have been in.
I skipped the recaps, so
Blasphemy.
But
I'm-
I'm interested to see what where she plays in this, and it reminds me, getting back to the westerns, was in from High Noon. Katie Jurado's character in that one, basically, poor with a heart of gold. And because they say Madame Garston is like, I'm pretty sure there's something more going on than it just being a cantina. She's a madam. And it's like,
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure there's something
she
going on behind the
she
scenes
she's
that we don't know about.
I think she's privy to a lot of information because of her
Yeah.
profession. So
Well,
knowledge
and a lot of times
knowledge is
in-
power.
Yeah, and a lot of times in a lot of these frontier towns, you had these places, and I'm pretty sure the girls there saw just about everybody who came in. Whether they had been lawman or outlaw or miner or whoever was passing through. So they got to see all kinds of things, and I'm pretty sure with Mos Espa being a frontier town, same thing. You have everybody coming through.
So okay, so right now it looks like the Pikes are going to be the big bad of
Right.
this series. Are we still hoping that we might? I'm hoping we still see Kira, whether she's with. Well, I guess she would still be with Red Dawn, but is she working with the Pikes, or is she going to come and help Boba Fett, or can they still work her into this series?
I'm sure they can. I mean that this is very much an underground, crime ring kind of show, and that's exactly what Crimson Dawn is. And I don't think it's going to be so much of she pops in to help one side or the other. I think it's going to be more that the business that one side conducts is going to encroach on the business that she conducts.
Right.
So it's going to become more of a conflict of territory than
Right.
anything else.
Right.
Well,
If they bring her in that way, then yeah.
And two,
What
have
up?
you noticed? And I don't know if you've noticed, Boba Fett really isn't stretching himself at this point. He's not stretching himself too thin. He's very much saying, Mos Espa. and not only just Mos Espa, just this district in Mos Espa, because this was Jabba's territory, and I'm going to stick with that, and that's all I want at this point. Now he's gonna. I'm sure there's going to be ambitions to move up the ladder, if you will, and gain some more territory at some point. But right now he's very focused on where he needs to be and playing his role.
I'm kind of interested if it's just Mos Espa, because I was always under the impression that Mos Eisley was a much bigger territory with everything coming through there, because that was more. I thought I was under the impression that was the bigger spaceport, and I'm kind of wondering, is like, because I was talking about this with a friend of mine last night. Do you honestly think the Hutts are just going to just say, "All right, we're out"? Peace.
No.
Oh no,
Absolutely
No,
not.
In fact, that may have them doing just that, where they came and said, "Okay, we're done. We've been lied to, and here's tribute, and here's a gift, and everything else, and we're leaving." I think that was a
Trojan horse.
Watch what this hand is doing, because you don't want to see what this hand's doing.
Yeah, Hutts are nothing if not duplicitous.
Right.
I mean, I just kind of figured there's like, they're gonna let Boba and the Pikes fight out, and whatever's left over, they may either take over or form some type of allegiance with or something, because it's a Hutt. What do you expect? I mean, they're slimy by nature, not just physically.
So, I was happy to see the Hutts.
Yeah.
I thought that these Hutts are, the way that they are portraying these Hutts is amazing. They look great. They've got them on their little pad and everything and wandering around. I think it's beautiful.
There was a meme that I shared where all these guys are carrying up, and they're saying that, yeah, this is really heavy. Too bad we don't have some type of floating technology to.
I saw that one, I think.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it's more a domination thing than anything.
Yeah.
It's a not domination. What did they call that?
Display of power.
Yes. And that's what they have said with Boba Fett too, was, he walks into a place and it was like, "Oh, I didn't see your litter. I didn't know you were somebody special." So,
yeah, it's like it's you're only one of the most notorious bounty hunters in the galaxy. Come on.
yeah. And he goes up to that gang and he says, "Hey, hey, you need to pay it back," or whatever, and they basically said, "Oh, go away, old man, and I am Boba Fett." And he's like, "Yeah, we know who you are. We don't care. Nobody respects you."
Well, then again, having worked in the field of education for a while, I've come across kids that are like that. It's like, you know who I am? Yeah, so what?
Yeah. So, you had, oh gosh, I can't even think of his name now. Office Space.
Yeah.
I
know who you mean.
Office Space Dodgeball. It's Bill Dotrieve. Bill Dotrieve is in Star Wars now. It's a beautiful. We need Mike Judge back in there now. We'll be great. Everything will be golden.
It's like these gangs have been stealing my stapler.
It's my red swing line stapler. I brought it from home. I will burn this place to the ground.
Yep. I was sitting over by the window, and the Rancors, they were married.
And they brought me my drink, and I said, "No salt. No salt on the glass." But they put salt on it anyways.
All right, I'm sorry to cut this short, guys, but I gotta head off of here.
No worries, Cam. Have fun.
All right.
Peace out.
Thanks for having me. Y'all have a good night.
Yep, we'll see y'all next week.
All right.
Okay. So we had Bill. We had the gangs. Again, I liked the attitude of the gangs, little young punks, and they acted just like little young punks. And in fact, I told my son, I was watching it with him, and I was like, because he even said they don't look like they belong there. And I said, "No, you're absolutely right. They don't look like they belong." I said they look like hipsters that belong in a city somewhere, not in a
Yeah, but
backwater planet.
it's not clear how long that they've been there. So they could have come on some transport and they're just that's why
Just
they look
there.
out of place.
So
They just need to be a little more dirtier.
yeah, they needed some of that sand. I don't like sand. It's coarse. It's rough.
It's
It
the
gets
Anakin thing.
everywhere.
So yeah.
'Cause it does. It does. It gets everywhere.
But the other thing I did, there was still a bit of a gut punch. There was when Boba comes back to the Tusken camp and they're all gone, and you're like,
Oh,
what?
and I really he had no emotion there either.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that was just shock or he was just stunned, but he came back and it was like he was looking around like almost like, okay, this has happened. I knew this was going to happen. And then he burns their bodies and everything. And I'm like, dude, he's not crying. He's not nothing. And these people did so much for him. And even I was sitting there going, oh no, because I really wanted to see some more of the Tuskens. They have very
yeah,
quickly within Star Wars lore moved from primitive, evil, sand dwelling people to a rich and
yeah.
thriving culture.
It
So,
reminds me, I don't know why, this of a story. When I was at the very first Star Wars celebration in Denver, way back in 1999, many years ago. Not at my hotel, but at the hotel next to me, they had some people dressed as sand people. They were in the elevators, and they were just riding the elevators all night long. So somebody's doors would open and
could be sand people.
yeah, it's like,
I
but
I
it's was along with like with Mandalorian, and now with Boba, you're like you're getting a lot more into their culture and finding
Yeah.
out that there's a lot more to them. And I mean it's interesting to see how maybe looking at the Tuskens, you figured there were mindless threats that were out there on the frontier, and now you're getting to see that those layers to them. And hopefully, I think maybe that's what they're trying to do with Boba, is the same thing. Instead of just this faceless figure, and you're finally getting the chance to hopefully see the man inside.
yeah.
Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe that's a metaphor for what where they're trying to go. One of the places I like to go to as soon as an episode airs, usually around lunchtime, that's when I'll watch, is Screen Crush with Ryan Airy, and he breaks down a lot of things about characters and the symbolism and things, and it's like, okay, maybe Boba is really trying to turn over a new leaf. Maybe he wants to try to, he's done all the things he's had in the past before, and maybe he's wants to settle down, not in the traditional sense of a way with him and Fennec or something like that, but have a home.
Right.
He's never
He
had
wants
a home.
that was and I've noticed this as a recurring theme too, because he had a family, if you will, with the Tuskens.
Right.
He had been accepted to them in their culture and everything, and now he's mentioned this, and actually I think Fennec has mentioned this several times throughout this 3 episodes of, you're the head of a family now. You're the head of the family now. So he's building himself this family, and now he got the 2 Gamorreans in the first episode. I mean, obviously Fennec and the Mandalorian, but then you had the 2 Gamorreans that he picked up at some point. He's got the Rancor now, and Danny Trejo, the Rancor, and the we'll just call him the Rancor trainer at this point. And then now he's got this other, the Power Ranger gang.
If we could just call it Machete in space,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe that's what they're trying to lead into. This is, for how many years he's been a bounty hunter, up until we're looking at what, maybe 20 years, give or take. Of having to do this, and after a while, you're like, you get a little world weary after doing something like that for so long, and maybe you just want to try something new and try something different.
Right.
And maybe this is maybe running a small little empire. Maybe that's what he wants.
Yeah. and that may be why he's limiting himself to Mos Espa too. It's like,
Right.
you know, I need a big house, and I need things to do it, and I only need this little slice of the pie to do it all.
Big house with a Rancor
Yeah,
in the
with a
basement.
ring, yeah, that I can ride. It's going to
All
be
right.
great. I'm anxious. I want to see that. I want to see him ride that Rancor by the end
We
of
still
this.
got 4 episodes, so I'm pretty sure they'll
Um,
have 4 episodes.
I it's been it's one of those things. It's been mentioned, so it'll probably happen.
Right. But
So
I'm interested, and yeah, I want to see where this goes. And of course, as soon as this series is over, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for what's coming next, because of course everybody's thinking about Obi-Wan,
right,
and
we've got Obi-Wan next, and then Andor, I believe.
yeah, and the funny thing about Andor is he's getting 12 episodes, and it's like, wow,
Great.
and it's like,
I as and
yeah, because yeah,
I catch flack from Cam I'd catch flack from, but uh, Dave Gramillion, our executive, he's very anti Rogue One, and
yes, we've had these conversations before.
and Cam is, I believe it was Cam that was talking to me about oh well, we don't need we don't need an Andor series. We don't need a series about a guy that was in one movie. And I'm looking at it going, you know what, Andor to me, and this was why Rogue One resonated so much with me, and I loved Rogue One. Of the
Right.
Disney era movies, that's my
Yeah.
favorite one. But sorry, Dave. Sorry, didn't mean to rain on your parade there. But a lot of it uh, has to do with me personally, and that's because I served in the military. I was over in Iraq. I went overseas. I was overseas, and when I was in intelligence.
Mm.
And so when I sit there and watch um, Rogue One, and they're talking, it's the technical jargon. Oh, he needs to verify this, and he needs to find this, and the extraction, and all this stuff. That was clicking with me, and I
Yeah.
loved it. And I was like, because I recognized it, and that was something that was part of my life for a long time.
I
And
Go ahead.
no, and so yes, for Andor to get his own series, and now we get to see Republic intelligence at work. I'm ready. I want to see it, just
I
because that's
I always kind of saw Rogue One as Star Wars, but from a grunt's point of view.
yeah. I liked it.
You see, you're not going to have Luke, Han, and I mean, you have soldiers on the ground fighting it out with stormtroopers, and the people are going to die, unfortunately, and well, everyone did die.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like we were saying, with Cassian, there's going to be some espionage there, and like you saw in Rogue One, he's not above having to kill someone if he has to.
yeah,
I mean, you
and
kill
somebody
somebody because
somebody that really wasn't
he's
a
an
threat
asset.
to him.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's like, hey, I got to get this information, and you're in my way, and like, you're going to slow me down, so I can't take you with me. So later.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure in the real world of true espionage, those are decisions that those people will have to make. Um, and I'm interested to see that, but at the same time, it's like, being cosplaying now as an imperial officer, uh, like, how is the Empire going to play in this? Because I mean, it's the Empire, and they're the guys you love to hate, basically. And
right.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do. And based on some stuff that I even saw, getting back to Kenobi here, there was someone who was in an Imperial officer costume on set. And I was like, okay, how's that going to fit into all of this?
Well,
But
now
I'm waiting to see what they're going to do with Kenobi here.
I was going to
as
say,
well.
isn't Kenobi supposed to happen in between
3 and 4.
Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope?
Yeah,
So it would make sense that there would be Imperial officers around, because the
yeah.
Empire is in power at that point.
By that point, and also, I know there's a lot of people who didn't like Bad Batch because it moved too slow, but at the same time, it's like, this is the beginning of the Empire. This is where the very beginning of this totalitarian state. So you're going to see that that transition and stuff like that. And they mention the chain code when they mention that they're going to phase out the clones in favor of stormtroopers and everything. And you're like, okay, this is the very, very beginning. I mean,
That
we
wasn't
know,
that wasn't the Bad Batch. That was
yeah.
that was the A-Team in space.
Oh yeah. But, I mean, we know the bigger picture by the time we get to New Hope. We've seen how vast the Empire is, but now they're starting from the ground up, and seeing how they're going to dominate and what they're going to do. I mean, it's almost like whenever you research, say, Nazi Germany, we've seen the rise and fall of everything, but to look at Nazi Germany, say like around 1933 or so, as they're starting to gain power and gain influence and stuff like that, and that's where the Empire is at the time of Bad Batch. They're
They're not quite the empire. They're not quite the empire that they need to be right now.
And we're just going to see just how bad they're going to be, how oppressive they're going to be. And I mean, like I said, that's the bad guys you love to hate.
Yeah. Okay. Boba Fett, episode 3. Any final thoughts on this one?
I know there's a lot of people who've been saying that like the meme that's been floating around is Star Wars fans are mad again. And again, it is what it is. But it's like give it time. Let's see what they're going to do. Be patient. Let's see what they're going to really do here. And you did get some action there. I mean, I think that the chase could have been a little bit better. But at the same time, you have Black Krrsanт, who was, he's a terror, and it's like I'd rather have him on my side.
Yeah, and that fight too. I mean, the way that started. I mean, it was a good jump scare right there when he was just in the back of the tank, and then all of a sudden he just got jerked out, and I was like, oh, what's happening?
It was a jump scare.
Yeah. It was good, and I mean, even Luke, my son, who was watching it with me, was like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" I'm like, "I know it's great."
Yeah, well, not great for Boba, but
no.
It's I give it time, and at the same time, moving compared to Mando, you're planet jumping from place to place. You're in one spot. You're on Tatooine.
Right.
And we're all familiar with it, so this is familiar ground. Instead of having to go and fighting ice spiders and frog ladies and all that sort of thing. Not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Mandalorian, but give it time. Give it a chance. I know some people are already like, well, I don't care for it, but they tune in to watch the episodes anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, give it time. We've got a weekly Star Wars series, people.
Well, and it's
appreciative of it.
I think that's what's getting people is that they can't binge watch it. And I know that a lot of, like, I'm on a show on Geek News Now on Monday nights.
Yeah.
That does Marvel. We do all the Marvel. Yep, I see you representing. But we go over whatever Marvel. And one of the big complaints that we ran into when WandaVision started, when Loki started, when Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you had all these series that started. And one of the big complaints was, I don't like it. I don't like the way they did it. And it's like, it's one episode. It's the first episode. Give it time. Yeah. Give it a minute and let's hash out the story, because there might be something that happens in that first episode to where in episode 4 or 5 or 6, you're going, I remember that from 1 and now it makes sense and everything's happening. It's like, you got to let it.
People were confused by the first episode of WandaVision. It was like, I know where they're going with it, but just go
calm down. Calm down.
And
it'll make sense.
WandaVision was incredible. I mean, it was really good, and at the same time, very emotional, because you get to see how everything that happened, with the snap, how that affected Wanda,
right,
and her dealing with loss and depression, and even with some people felt the same way thing about Falcon and Winter Soldier, but it's like, okay, they're having to learn to work together, and they have a mutual friend, and it's like, how are they going to gel? I mean, and at the same time, I mean, I know every show is always going to have, it's little plot holes or things like that. Doesn't make any sense. Well, no movie or show ever is. I mean, if you even look at our movies that we revere, like The Godfather or Wizard of Oz or Citizen Kane, they're not perfect.
No,
they're going to have.
There has never been a perfect movie ever.
Everything is going to always have something. Is like, okay, well, that didn't make sense, or how come that happened, or that didn't happen during this particular time period. But it's like, it's entertainment, and just go with it, and just have fun.
That's why when you get to the sequels, and a lot of people don't like the sequels. I like the sequels. I thought they were a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I saw you roll your eyes. Don't you roll your eyes at me? But I enjoyed them, and The Last Jedi I thought was great. A lot of people hated The Last Jedi, and I thought it was really good. I saw it 4 or 5 times in the theater, and I bought it the first day it came out, and blah blah blah, all this other stuff. And people are like, "Oh yeah, but what about this and what about that?" And I was like, you know what? I didn't like the pod race in episode 1. I thought that was too long and drawn out. I said I wasn't a big fan of the in Empire. There are parts of Empire that I don't personally care for, but I mean they're necessary for the. I know, but that harkens back to there has not been a perfect movie made. Now, do I hate The Last Jedi because it's The Last Jedi, or do I just don't like the parts? There are parts within The Last Jedi that I don't like, so I'll just kind of gloss over those parts, but hit the spots that I hit the high points, basically.
I mean, in terms of sequel trilogy, I mean, I have my issues with it, but at the same time, there's things with those that are always going to be great, and that is the special effects are always going to be fantastic. ILM always delivers, and of course, John Williams' music that always delivers. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. And of course, it's Mark Harrison and Carey. As much as I would have loved to have all 3 of them together for one scene, we're getting them, and maybe it's not not the way we would have expected, but what reason why Carey so say I'll do it anyway. She told Mark Hamill was because I'm going to do it because where else in Hollywood or women my age going to find work? And it's like, she's right. You see here. And, it's one of the last times we get to see Carrie, unfortunately. And as much as I disagreed with the performance of how Luke was portrayed, Mark really did a good performance on that. He really, you really get to see a lot of his acting chops on that one. And Mark is an incredible actor. He just doesn't get enough credit for what he does, but he's great in everything he does. But aside from that, I'm not going to get into that. Would be another episode. Reason to come onto the show, and that would be a 3-parter. As to what I didn't like, but a 2-parter. But I appreciate it for what it was. I did see them, and the last time I did see The Rise of Skywalker, it was at the very theater where I saw the original one way back in '78.
Oh, nice.
It's like, okay, this is where it all started, and this is where it ends. So,
very cool.
But at the same time, it's like, I'm glad they gave us the Mandoverse, because you're continuing this story, and it really delivered. I mean, the first episode I watched, The Mandalorian, I went in there with no expectations, and I'm like, whoa, and then finally, there's a baby Yoda. Wait, whoa!
And then it ended. You're like, I gotta wait another week. I gotta wait a week to find out what happened.
And the great thing, because I know we talked about this earlier when we mentioned, surprise, Harrison Ford's going to be there as Han Solo. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen because everybody knows about it. Because for that whole time leading up to the Mandalorian, everybody's focused on Mandalorian. They totally kept Grogu under wraps, and nobody saw it coming. And so it's a total surprise at the very end of that episode. And again, same thing with Luke. And I think there was so much symbolism there, and I think, and this is just me talking, but when Luke showed up, it was a great way to end 2020, because a year of having to deal with lockdowns and COVID and so much depressing and aggravating news and with everything. And here you are beginning the holiday season, with the final episode, and here comes Luke Skywalker. And it was what you needed to have to really end the year on a good note.
Yes.
And I mean, if you go back and look at a lot of fan reactions to that, you see people who are crying because, one, it's the Luke that we always wanted to see, and I mean, it really touched back on what we loved about all these movies to begin with. I mean, it's, you're cheering your hero on here.
Right.
And even getting into one of the other reasons why I did like Rogue One is because, well, it captured that, it brought you back to the universe that you were familiar with. Because for years we we saw a lot of Clone Wars. We did the whole Clone Wars era, and I mean they did great on that. But now we're going back to basics. Back to stormtroopers and X-Wings and the Death Star and the Star Destroyers and all this stuff. It's stuff that we were familiar with, and we're getting a chance to step back into that chapter again, that particular era. And it was perfect. And I think it captured the spirit. Same thing with Solo. I mean, a lot of people did not like Solo and had their issues with Solo. But at the same time, it wasn't the greatest Star Wars movie, but it was in the spirit. And I mean, as for the actor, Alden Ehrenreich,
yes,
I think that's how you say his name.
I think so. Yeah.
He did good for the role. I mean, he's not going to do Harrison Ford. I mean, those are some very tall boots to fill.
Somebody told me once, they said, don't think of him as playing Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. Just think of him as playing Han Solo. And it will line up and everything will make sense and it'll be good. Because he had the personality, the Han Solo personality.
Yeah, I agree. Because, I mean, it's like anytime anybody takes on a role like anytime there's a new James Bond, as soon as they come in, they make that role their own. The first time when Roger Moore stepped in to be Bond, he's like, okay, well, how do I recreate Sean Connery? You can't. You do your version on that. And then same thing that they did with Pierce Brosnan and Timothy Dalton and Daniel Craig.
Right.
You make the role your own.
And George Lazenby. Don't forget George Lazenby.
I almost forgot George there. But yeah, I mean,
okay.
Even when you have a new Batman, it's like,
yeah,
okay, you're Adam West is going to.
Oh, and we've got an interesting one coming up, but that's another show.
Yeah,
got Robert Pattinson coming. We got a sparkly Batman, but it's a show. Anyway,
let me know if you want me for that one, and just got to find a Batman shirt. So,
on that note, Book of Boba Fett episode 3 was honestly my favorite episode thus far. I had a lot of fun with this episode. We've been at it for right at an hour, so we're going to call it. If you want to do you want to do a plug for your group there? One more plug for your group there, Peter.
Yeah, sure.
Shameless plug time. We're doing shameless plugs.
Plug time. This is the episode where we shamelessly plug what we're doing here, and free balloons for the kids. Yes, Star Wars Society San Antonio. formed back in 1999. It was a club for fans by fans. One of our old phrase, our old logos was a club from deep from deep in the heart of. How did it go? It's been so long. It was a club from deep in the heart of Texas that came from a galaxy far, far away. Something like
Nice.
that. And we've done various parades throughout San Antonio, helped out many, many charities. It's free to join. All you have to do is go to Facebook groups and look up Star Wars Society of San Antonio and join. And you don't have to be you don't have to have a costume to join. Even though it may be helpful. But a lot of times for people who are in costume, you're helpful for a lot of these people as it is, because sometimes Vader needs help getting dressed, or something. We need these little spotters or something like that. We need our handlers make sure, like, okay, oops, so and so's batteries right on the lightsaber. I was like, oh, I got some.
That's as someone who has cosplayed Darth Vader before. Those handlers are very nice to have, because I can't tell you the number of times where I've been standing there at a con or something like that, and you're waving your lightsaber around and taking pictures, and all of a sudden your handler taps you and says, turn around, and there's a little 3 to 4 year old child beside you that's just like, oh, you're Darth Vader and I love you, and blah, blah, blah. And you can sit down and interact with that child, and you wouldn't have known he was there, because you can see about like this. It's like, you got blinders on in that mask.
Well, if you ever do Vader at a con and you need an Imperial officer, I'm right here.
All right.
Not to get choked or anything,
Yeah.
Be your handler.
Okay. Well, on that note, don't forget to check out geeknewsnow.net. Check out our website. We've got a lot of cool articles. In fact, we got a good one up there, and I just had my banner up, and I should have mentioned it during the show. Today is the 40th anniversary for Miss Pac-Man. So we have yay! She is the godmother of video game heroines.
Yes.
So go check out geeknewsnow.net. We've got a lovely article by one of our writers. Andrew Roscoe wrote a great piece on it. We have had our Twitch gamers up playing Pac-Man, just all kinds of celebrating everything Miss Pac-Man. So go check us out there. Look for us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Twitch, on all the platforms. Instagram, we've got a TikTok too. So go check us out there, and we will see you all next week.